Good evening. I'm Flemming Norcott Jr., also known as Nick to many of my friends in the community, and I'm chairman of the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven's Board of Directors. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I want to welcome you to our annual meeting. The members of our talented board are the Vice Chair, Marcella Nunez-Smith, Maisa Akbar, Kalila Brown-Dean, Roxanne Cody, Joseph Gordon, Carlton Highsmith, Terry Jones, Fernando Muñiz, Gregory Pepe, and Valerie Schultz-Wilson. These colleagues are paragons in their professional disciplines and have come together to work for the betterment of the Greater New Haven community. I personally want to thank them for their dedication and time and all the work they do for the foundation. I also want to thank personally our CEO and President Will Ginsberg and his very talented staff for all they do for this community. The time and efforts they put into the work, you will only think about, but never really realize. I also want to thank the students and faculty of the Cooperative Arts and Humanities High School Music Department for their musical performance of Oye Como Va. Tito Puente would be very proud of your rendition. It certainly was bueno para gozar. In 2020, the world changed yet again. The COVID pandemic emerged like a silent, deadly, mythical beast and presented the world with unprecedented challenges and tearful crises that do not bear repeating here. It's undeniable that the COVID pandemic has exposed that to which we only have given lip service, the systemic inequity in all facets of life that has historically plagued peoples of color, the poor, and the disadvantaged. Our community has not been spared the impact of this injustice. Yet throughout history, Americans have shown great resiliency. With great challenges come great opportunities for change. In this age of COVID, the foundation has realized that, in the words of Will Ginsberg, our president and CEO, the old ways of doing things are not adequate. We've begun the process of advancing racial, gender, and economic equity through significant programmatic efforts and collaborations. It's imperative that we listen to and involve in the solutions the people who have been negatively affected the most. I love the game of football, the American style of football, and much of my life has been dedicated to it. I played it, coached it, and officiated it. I see it as a metaphor of life. In the context of our present situation, I see the end zone as the achievement of a more loving, equitable, and inclusive society, where hate and divisiveness have been completely defeated. A successful team includes all of us, the advantaged and the disadvantaged. I'm an optimist. While there will be fumbles, a play that doesn't work from time to time, and other unforeseen setbacks, we will cross the goal line, but victory has yet to be achieved. Darren Walker, the president and CEO of the Ford Foundation, recently said that inequity is the enemy of hope. Hopelessness and inequity are members of the team that we strive to defeat. The Community Foundation has already signed up to be on the team that I call inclusiveness, equity, and diversity. We don't have all the answers, but look to our community to be partners as we strive to overcome the challenges that we face. I hope that you'll join the team with your prayers, support, and constructive criticism when necessary. Next, you'll experience a video, Coming Together in Time of Crisis, produced by one of the community's bright young stars, a young man named Donald Durden. I'm sure that you will be very impressed by his work. After a message from Will Ginsberg, you'll hear information about the Great Give campaign and support that we hope you'll give to the nonprofit community. Thank you all. Support the COVID-19 fund whenever you can. Support the Great Give. Stay together, stay united, and stay safe. Thank you.
Everyone had great expectations for 2020. It's the new and, life's going to be great. And then boom.
I had recently returned from Thailand, where I'd been doing a little bit of teaching and touring. And interestingly enough, on my way back to the States, I went through Wuhan, China in early January and saw that there were a lot of things going on that were not made public yet.
What's going on? We were watching it happen in China, and it's like, oh wow, that's bad. Oh wow, that's sad. Never thinking here it's gonna come over here in the States.
At the break of the pandemic, before lockdown happened, when late January, when there was inklings of this Wuhan virus and what was going on abroad.
And now it's our turn, in a sense, where now it's hitting here and, it's getting serious.
And I remember being in a grocery store sometime in February, before lockdown, when people started stockpiling toilet paper and flour and sanitizer and all those things. And I remember standing in line and a couple customers moving out of my line. And I realized, wow, it's begun.
When COVID first hit, it hit fast. It was quite unexpected. We had 1 day's notice that the state was shutting down.
Well, this was a very bizarre year, not only for our community, but for the world.
We have to shut down. I have been working since I was 14.
In the beginning, when this was all happening, we had to sit down with my wife and say, what are we gonna do here? Are we gonna use all our savings to maintain our employees, or are we gonna shut down?
The physical space shut down, and all the teaching staff had to leave.
We found out in March that we would be out of school for an indefinite amount of time, and we were given 1 day notice.
Where everyone was bustling, people were waiting for services. It was just a booming environment. To having to say and make that call that we had to operate remotely.
Something like 400 employees, and it's 5 theaters and restaurants all in one facility. And immediately in the next few weeks, we heard of institutions like this who were just having to lay off all their employees, and it became just it was heart-wrenching to me.
People lost jobs, and you're just watching more people are homeless. It's very, very sad, to depend on something that you never thought you would. People happen to depend on unemployment, jobs closing, they're not even opening back up, working from home. Now you're trying to monopolize being a parent and working from home. And
It's like compounding disasters. And so I think that's really an important story to tell.
The effect of COVID has been disproportionately impacting communities of color and refugees and immigrants. From our point of view, it's basically compounding on the injustices that existed before.
There was already so many communities that were struggling from before the pandemic. What happened was the pandemic made it worse.
every time I turn the TV on, someone else is losing their son that just so happened to be Black.
As long as systemic racism exists, racial, ethnic, class-based disparities will continue to occur. If it's not one pandemic, it will be another pandemic.
COVID has done nothing but exacerbate a situation which has been prevalent for centuries. But what it has done in the last year has really made us all aware of what needs to be done and who needs to step up to the plate to address it.
When we look at why people are struggling, we have to look deeper.
It's important for us to go out there and let people know that they're seen, let people know that they're heard, let people know that they matter, but we do that through collaborative partnerships, right? Building these solutions with people and for people and not looking down upon people. I think those are the things that we need to do, right? If we want to impact people's lives, work with the people who are experts of their own realities in order for us to do that.
When the pandemic hit, one of our staff members was the first person in New Haven to expire from COVID-19.
My father actually ended up getting COVID at the same time that I'm helping other people who have been impacted by COVID. It was definitely a very scary time, especially because his symptoms were definitely of the more severe symptoms.
You know, he got diagnosed on a Wednesday. You know, they were like, you know, just stay at home, drink fluids and, you know, get some rest. And so he did that. Then my mother called me on that Friday and said, you know, his condition was getting a little bit worse. And so she was going to take him in to, you know, to get checked out. They checked him into the hospital. They gave him oxygen. They said, you know, everything is looking good. We'll keep him here for a couple of days and he should be home. And so spoke with him on Saturday. My cousin had a Zoom, you know, birthday party. He checked in on Saturday night to say hey to everyone. And on Sunday morning, I got a call saying that they were trying to revive him. And, you know, about 30 to 40 minutes later, I got the call from my mother to say that he had passed on.
It took my sister, my best friend, my lifeline in a sense, like she's all I've known. And just, I don't know, she's not here. She had COVID and, you know, this is the outcome of it where I am truly, truly affected. My life will be forever changed. Her family's life will be forever changed. And I think we're still in shock. You know, the shock is sad.
We witnessed some really dark times when art was just not as prevalent in the community. But also what we saw is the amazing resiliency from the arts community to bounce back and to continue to serve people.
Well, I had the diapers set up in my home, and I had parents come pick them up there. I would leave them on my front porch because think back then, you know, we didn't want any contact with anybody. They would tell me when they were coming. I would leave them in a plastic bag wrapped for them with their name on my front porch so they could pick up the diapers. So at least we were able to still get them the diapers while we were at home. And we also partnered with other agencies to find out who was delivering food or where they could go to pick up food if they needed additional food.
I made myself vulnerable and told them my story. And I've never felt so loved and so supported by a group of people. Neighbors came out, friends came out, and they took, their lunch break to come out and stand in solidarity. And if they couldn't in person, they did it with their words and support and love. And it made me realize, as much as I feared those around me, I can also feel so supported by those around me.
If I got everybody's backing, that I can lead it through, but I need everybody's backing, and everybody was on board. So for me, that was probably the moment where I felt like we got a good solid team here. We're gonna make it through. It's just gonna take a lot of hard work and resiliency.
All these things are nothing more than access to opportunity. Opportunity is a door that once open, you go through, but you don't stop once you're through the door. There's got to be a movement, not only of those who are taking advantage of the opportunity, but those who have provided the opportunity.
It's 2021, no longer 20. We are in the throes of administering vaccines to as many people as we can do that for.
I hope that if anyone takes anything from this, it's compassion and unity. It took individuals to become a team and lock it in to make this work. Whatever the outcome has been, just know that we all gave it our all.
I think this moment, this racialized moment, calls for us to dig deep into ourselves and really think about our place in society and how either we're guarding something and not letting others, or we're sharing it. And we're saying, you know what, much like the community organizers who started Junta, let's go.
Good evening, all. I'm Will Ginsberg, president of the foundation, and I want to thank you all for joining us here this evening for the foundation's 2021 annual meeting. I want to start with a special thank you to our chair, Nick Norcott, who you heard from a few moments ago. Thank you, Nick, for your wonderful opening comments, for your leadership, and for all you mean to the foundation and to this whole community. And I want to reiterate your thanks to the music department at Cooperative Arts and Humanities High School in New Haven for that wonderful opening performance we saw. With a special shout out, if you'll indulge me, to Michael Chung, one of the faces you saw on screen, who is the son of the foundation's own Stephanie Chung. All I can say is, oh yeah, como va. To Donnell Durden and his colleagues at Aligning, I want to say a profound thank you for the powerful video that we just saw. For so many, the isolation of COVID this past year has made it an intensely personal experience. The people you interviewed, Donnell, and their stories as you captured them are certainly powerful as individual testimonies. Taken together, they tell us much about our community's story this past year, too. To everyone out there this evening, I can't see you, but I thank you from my heart for being here. Your presence means a great deal. After all we have endured this past year, this terrific attendance is a statement of our common purpose and of our connections to one another in the face of powerful forces of separation. Community is all about connection, and we are deeply grateful for the enduring connections that we share with you. I hope that the video you just saw and the photo loop that was playing before our program began captured for you, as it does for me, some of what has made this past year in our community so different, so tragic, so difficult in many ways, so inspirational in other ways, and so potentially transformational. This last year has been a time of loss. Lost health, lost jobs, lost progress, and of course, lost lives. Too many lost lives. Yet this last year has also been a time of remarkable resilience, generosity, and courage. Healthcare workers, first responders, social service providers, frontline workers, family and friends of those taken ill, all putting themselves at risk to be of service and comfort to others. And really, almost everyone, in the simple act of wearing a mask or stepping off a curb to let a passerby go by, all of those acts made a profound statement of community too. This last year has also been a time of disconnection. Too many have been too alone. It has been a time when personal relationships, the very raw material of community, took the form of grainy images on computer screens. And yet this has been a time when the bonds of family, friendship, work, and community were brought ever more to the center of our consciousness because we could no longer take them for granted. This last year has been a time of deepened and inescapable inequity, with COVID's terrible costs falling so disproportionately on people of color, on women with children, on those exposed to the virus as frontline workers, and on those lacking access to the technology needed to work safely or to learn safely. This last year has also been a time of inescapable injustice, when we were graphically confronted with the age-old demons of hatred and racist violence. The video of George Floyd's murder remains indelible. It has changed us. Inescapable inequity and injustice have made this a time of awakening too, when we have come face to face with the inadequacy of what we have been doing to make a more equitable and just society. So many in business, in government, and in the social sector have committed to do better and to do more. Initially, COVID created feelings of powerlessness as we hunkered down, just trying to stay out of the path of this seemingly out of control force. Yet now, as vaccinations mount and restrictions are being relaxed, powerlessness is giving way to a sense that we can make COVID the departure point for doing things differently and for making life better for all in our community. This pandemic has revealed so much about what it is we need to do to make our world and our community better. This can be a transformational moment. Yet in every realm, one hears the same questions. Will we accept this learning? Will we move forward from here? Or will the forces of reaction prevail again? When COVID struck like a thunderclap last March, the Community Foundation, like so many others, pivoted swiftly. Within days, we changed our plans, processes, and priorities for the year, reacting in real time to the crisis around us despite all the unknowns. The foundation staff adjusted wonderfully well. Working entirely remotely, the foundation in 2020 had perhaps our most productive year ever. By our conventional measures, while hardly the whole story, 2020 was a very strong year. The foundation made $33 million in total grants and distributions in 2020, one of our highest totals ever. The foundation received more than $22 million in gifts and transfers last year, as our donors responded with great generosity to the needs all around us. And after a terrible downturn in the first half of 2020, our investment performance came roaring back. By year end, our corporate assets were up 17.6% for the year, ahead of all of our benchmarks, and the foundation's assets at year end totaled $778 million. I'm deeply proud of our foundation team, the staff who made it happen despite all the personal and professional obstacles that COVID threw in their way. They not only rolled with the punches, they punched back with great creativity, energy, cohesion, and commitment. They showed us what they can do when the chips are down, and that in turn opens up all kinds of new possibilities for the future. In the early days of the pandemic, as the community locked down and as unemployment shot up, food insecurity and other basic needs became central. So many people and families became newly vulnerable. Many new grassroots groups and organizations came forward in the hardest hit neighborhoods, understanding that many of those needing support for the first time in their lives would turn to those they knew best, their neighbors or their church. At the same time, facing reduced revenues and skyrocketing demand for services, as well as large unanticipated expenses to keep their staff members and clients safe, many local nonprofits were facing existential crisis, particularly smaller organizations that didn't have reserves. In partnership with United Way of Greater New Haven, the foundation immediately created a new COVID-19 community fund. The COVID fund has raised and distributed more than $4.4 million since last March. Almost 25% of the COVID fund grants last year went to grassroots organizations that had never before been supported by the foundation. In the midst of that first COVID surge last spring, donors across our community contributed more than $3.6 million to almost 400 nonprofits through the Great Give, virtually doubling the previous record set in 2019. This remarkable outpouring of support was exactly what was needed at a true low point in the community's battle against COVID. The same generous response is needed this year. As I hope you know, we work hard so that everybody knows, the 2021 Great Give starts tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. You will hear more about that in a few minutes. Altogether, with our COVID fund, with the expansion and acceleration of the Foundation's Plan 2020 grant making, with the response of our donor advisors, and with the Great Give, the Foundation's immediate pandemic response last spring resulted in more than $10 million in discretionary grants and gifts going out into our community within 90 days. As we did this work, it immediately became clear that responding to COVID also meant responding to the deep-rooted systemic inequities in our society. People of color and those living in poverty have paid a hugely disproportionate price in terms of the health, economic, and educational impacts of COVID. Women, particularly women of color, have been forced out of the workforce in such numbers this past year that COVID's economic impact has been called a she-cession. And just as COVID was dropping its sledgehammer, the brutal murders of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and others vividly put human faces to the hard statistical evidence of inequity. So mid-2020 marked a clear turning point, a reckoning with systemic racism that starts with the realization that the old ways of advancing racial progress have been inadequate. New ideas, new leaders, new energy, and new commitments emerged to address racial inequity in new ways, both here and elsewhere around the country. A movement was unleashed, extending from corporate boardrooms to the halls of government, to voter registration drives, to grassroots organizing. Philanthropy, too, is facing a reckoning. Foundations across the country are responding, even as our sector grapples with its duality as both a powerful force for progress and a reflection of a society in which wealth and privilege are overwhelmingly white. Against this backdrop, last year, your community foundation decided that this unique historic moment, so painful and tragic, yet so full of the promise of real change, too, demands more of us. Stepping forward is the Foundation's $26 million plan to address the impacts of COVID and to advance racial equity. It will provide the Foundation with about $15 million in incremental discretionary monies to be spent over the next 3 years, an increase of more than 50% from what would otherwise be our annual discretionary spending. Stepping forward will also provide about $11 million for 3 newly established endowment funds. This $26 million is coming from both an unprecedented supplemental extraction from our endowments and from donor support. Never before in our 93-year history has the Foundation ramped up current spending like this. Taking these additional amounts from our discretionary endowments as a COVID response is not only unprecedented for us, it is highly unusual, if not unique, among community foundations nationally. That we are stepping forward now is truly a tribute to our board of directors. As one, they have urged boldness. Their message has been clear. Do more, don't hesitate to break the mold, honor donor intent, of course, preserve capacity to respond to future needs too, but now is the time. While Kalila Brown-Dean, our chair last year, and Nick Norcott, our current chair, have set this tone from the head of the table, our 11 extraordinary directors, each a longtime leader in her or his own right, needed no convincing. At this critical moment, our board has shown us what leadership really looks like. That we can increase spending in this way to meet the moment is possible because our donors over many decades have created discretionary, unrestricted, and preference funds at the foundation. The value of a discretionary endowment is showing itself as never before. At the same time, our non-discretionary funds are making a huge difference too. Informed by a series of 10 donor briefings last year, the foundation's donor advised grant making increased significantly in 2020, totaling $5.6 million, including donor advised monies transferred to our COVID fund. As part of stepping forward, we have established 3 new endowments to address racial equity and COVID impacts: a new racial equity fund, a new basic needs fund, and a new civic awareness and engagement fund. Our goal is to raise $11 million for these funds over the next several years. I am very pleased to be able to say this evening that thanks to the extraordinary generosity of our donors, as well as internal transfers authorized by our board, the balance in these funds today is approximately $7.7 million. Stepping forward is both building on and transforming our core philanthropic practices. Under Stepping Forward, even as we continue to build the community's charitable endowment in traditional ways, our development work is changing. We are more focused now on raising current use funding to meet community needs, working with committees of community volunteers to build the 3 funds I just mentioned, and diversifying our donor base. Secondly, Stepping Forward is greatly expanding our core grant-making programs. We have significantly larger grant budgets this year, and we are accelerating our core grant-making processes too. Thirdly, Stepping Forward includes dedicated funds for racial and ethnic justice grant-making, a first for us. We anticipate that these monies will be used to support change makers who are tackling racist systems and structures through advocacy, organizing, and civic engagement. And fourthly, Stepping Forward is funding 2 new grant programs at the leading edge of turning more of our grant decision-making over to those closest to the issues being addressed. In one, we're working with the Arts Council to support artists and art organizations whose work advances racial equity and healing through the arts. In the other, we are working with the University of Connecticut to provide leadership and nonprofit management training for people of color working for local nonprofits. We are only 4 months into our 3-year Stepping Forward plan, so its ultimate shape is far from determined. Stepping Forward will respond in real time to how forces large and small are shaping our community in this time of change. We will see whether major local institutions also step forward. We will see what priorities are set for the vast amounts of new federal money coming our way. And we will be listening to the community from as many perspectives as possible, including by holding follow-up sessions to this annual meeting. There should be a form in the chat on your screen to sign up for one of those sessions. However the foundation's work might change in the next several years, it will continue to be anchored in our core strategic objectives of opportunity and equity. Even though our 5-year strategic plan, which is entitled Opportunity and Equity, was put in place in 2019, all the events of this last year have served to underscore rather than alter our focus on opportunity and equity as the twin pillars of the foundation's work. Equity and opportunity are inextricably tied. Greater opportunity without greater equity is a recipe for greater division. Greater equity without greater opportunity is a false promise. For too long, our community and our state have been places of too little opportunity and too much inequity. To change that, we need growth that is inclusive, and we all, public and private, city and suburb, Black, brown, and white, need to embrace equity as a core community goal. Equity is now the connective tissue that ties together the Foundation's work. It is no longer one commitment of the Foundation's among many. It is now a defining element of all we do. Our grant programs, capacity building programs, development strategies, mission investments, and organizational culture are all tied now to our larger vision of building a more equitable community. At one end of the funnel, the community will see our commitment to equity and how we deploy our resources and in what voices we include in making those decisions. At the other end, you will see it too in the ways in which we are broadening our reach and deepening our relationships. You'll see it in who we are connected with, how we connect with them, and how we listen to what they have to say. How fortunate we are at the Foundation at this time to have board members who are and who have been the doers, the leaders, and the trailblazers for equity in our community and beyond, in some cases for decades. In their lives and in their extraordinary careers, our board members personify accomplishment and commitment to equity. I hear it and feel it in every conversation, and I'm so privileged to work with them. Our equity work is from the inside out. It is shaping our staff learning through the books we read and discuss together and through our ongoing engagement with the Racial Equity Institute. It is shaping our staff hiring as we are filling several new positions related to stepping forward. And it is shaping our plans to examine our own Foundation history as a reflection of race relations in Greater New Haven over the last century. Externally, our two largest grant commitments are New Haven Promise and CONCAT, both powerful engines of equitable opportunity in our community. We are deeply proud of our role in founding and sustaining these organizations over the last decade, and we have reiterated our long-term commitment to each of them over the last 2 years. As part of our work to promote equitable opportunity through inclusive growth in our region, the Foundation has refocused our mission investments on early-stage, women-owned and minority-owned businesses. This involves both direct investments and the building of what we call an equitable entrepreneurial ecosystem in Greater New Haven. A diverse 13-member council of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial supporters established this past year guides our work in ecosystem building. Our partners in this work include the New Haven Innovation Collaborative and CoLab. Our largest mission investments, made in partnership with the local family foundation, are in Concorp's redevelopment of Dixwell Plaza and in Next Haven on Henry Street. The transformative potential of these two projects for Dixwell and New Hallville is enormous. And in talking about opportunity and equity, I also want to highlight the work we are starting to do now with our community foundation counterparts in the Hartford and Fairfield County areas. Together, we have created the Connecticut Urban Opportunity Collaborative. We are hiring our first ever joint staff person, and we are working together on policy issues at the state level. We are excited at what could come of the 3 largest community foundations in the state, speaking and acting together to advance the interests and needs of the residents of New Haven, Bridgeport, Hartford, and other urban areas in our state. By way of conclusion, I want to repeat something I said a few minutes ago. This pandemic has revealed much of what we need to do to make our world and our community better. Together, we can make this a transformational time. It is up to us as a community. For the Foundation, this has led us to step forward in new ways, transformative ways, to utilize the trust and the resources we have built over 93 years to advance greater equity and opportunity in our community. Many others in our community have also stepped forward, and they too are contributing to making this unique moment in our history a transformative one. The Great Give, tomorrow and Wednesday, is an important way for all of us to step forward. Please give generously to the organizations you care most about. Please consider supporting organizations you've never supported before. And please urge your friends and neighbors to support our community too. The people on the front lines of doing the work of community in our nonprofits are better able than I am to tell you how important this all is. So I'm going to turn to them now and to Jackie Downing, our Director of Grant Making and Nonprofit Support, who is the major domo of the Great Give. I thank you all again for our enduring connections and for being with us tonight. Thank you.
Your support of the Great Give is vital to our ability to meet our operating expenses and to continue our good work in the community.
We've been participating in the Great Give since its inception. We never miss a year. It is a huge part of our annual campaign every year.
It does more than raise money for nonprofits. It increases public awareness.
We want to have more people aware of who we are and where we are so that we can jump in and help out where we see the need.
And the need is definitely there, and especially now through the pandemic.
Everything related to COVID-19, all of those items have been unbudgeted. So we've needed to raise additional funds to support the ongoing sanitizing, cleaning supplies.
Last year, the Great Give became more important than ever because it's unrestricted dollars coming from donors. Doesn't have the kind of limitations we see often in grants.
We were just blown away by the response. It was really very, very generous. And a lot of new people became involved with the organization as a result of that effort.
New Haven, I know, has the most nonprofits per capita in the state. And I think that difference really showed this year.
There's so many great organizations in Greater New Haven.
We'll do the work. We just need the support to continue to do the work.
We need your help. This is a team effort. This takes all of us to come together.
Every single dollar that comes into the school is so tremendously impactful and appreciated.
We simply can't do this without you. We simply can't do this.
It's been a challenging year, and we have survived because of you.
What an amazing video. Hope you enjoyed that video. Now you've seen what our nonprofits have done in the last year, and now you've seen what your support has meant to them. Let me let you in on a little secret. They have been doing this work all along. They have always met the emerging needs of our community and the ongoing needs that are ever present. They provide comfort and care, support and assistance and joy. And in the last year, it's obvious that our healthcare organizations have been hard at work, but so have mental health organizations. So support the clinics and counselors in the Great Give. And environmental organizations have given us outdoor spaces to enjoy. So support parks and land trusts. The arts have provided online performances and classes that allowed us to create and imagine and laugh and cry. Please support the arts for the ways they have supported us. Our social justice and equity organizations have stood for those with marginalized voices, helping us to understand that opportunity for all truly means opportunity for all. Give to the social justice organizations. Our housing and food security organizations kept our friends and neighbors in shelter and saved families who had never experienced this need before from going hungry. And animal organizations did the same thing for pets who may have been displaced in the pandemic. Our education organizations kept our kids learning in creative ways that we could not possibly have imagined before last year. And others helped adults with literacy and job training in those same creative and safe ways. Two groups who need support and socialization, our youth and our elderly, also found support and care from our nonprofits. And now it's time for us to care for them. Now, you may have heard yourself in this list, but maybe you did, or maybe a neighbor or family member. We are all now more aware of what our nonprofits do, and it's time to give back. The Great Give is a perfect way to thank our nonprofits for the last year and for next year and for the time before and after that. If you want to find an org you care about and give generously, then find one or two more and give to them as well. Learn something new about the great work that goes on in Greater New Haven. It's easy. Go to thegreatgive.org, thegreatgive.org. You can search for a particular organization or search for a cause that has special meaning to you. And for your convenience, you can load your gifts into a shopping cart and check out one transaction. The Community Foundation provides $100,000 in matching money that will be divided by the number of donors, and each organization will receive part of this match. We have other matches that come from the Valley Community Foundation for donors who live or work in the Valley, so make sure you check that box. Griswold Home Care is doing match for elderly serving organizations. The Bank of America is matching the arts. New Alliance Foundation is matching literacy organizations. The Progreso Latino Fund is supporting Latino and Latinx organizations. KeyBank Foundation is supporting members of the Urban Nonprofit Network. Their Black-led grassroots organization is doing amazing work in our community. On Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, Liberty Bank is providing a special match for Greater New Haven housing organizations and Valley Basic Needs organizations. So if housing is your issue, please wait till Wednesday morning to give. We also have prizes from the Community Foundation, the Valley Community Foundation, the Brantford Community Foundation, and the Guilford Foundation. Lots of prizes, lots of excitement all night long. So watch the leaderboard. Your gift makes a difference, large or small. This is my friend Gigi. She is the mascot for the Great Give, and she's here to show that whatever you can do, small things grow into big. So Gigi, our acorn, even a gift of $5 can help an organization. There is no maximum gift, so please give whatever you can. Last year, more than 17,000 donors gave $3.6 million to our local nonprofits. We'd like to count you in for this year. Now, let's get our giving started with a raffle. We are going to choose two of our attendees today at our annual meeting. Those attendees will get a $250 grant to give to the nonprofit of their choice in the Great Give. So I am going to draw two names from our bucket. I've got them. And let's see who our winners are. We have David Johnson. Congratulations, David Johnson. And we have Hilda Nieves. Congratulations, Hilda. We're so excited that you're our winners for today. So I'll be in touch with you to talk about what organizations you would like to benefit from your $250 gift. That's going to be a great start to their fundraising. We want to thank you all for attending this evening. We ask that you share your feedback about tonight's event. You'll see a survey link coming up in the chat. Please do give us your feedback. You'll also see a link in the chat that's set up for small group conversations that Will talked about earlier. Those conversations will be with foundation leaders, and if you're interested in joining those, we ask that you click on that and join us. We'd love to have your voice at the table. We're grateful for your time tonight and for your commitment to our community, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Stay safe and have a pleasant evening.